Kia ora. My name is Triona and I am an archivist. I actually have to remind myself that every day because archives has changed very much as a career. So I call this from archives to AI because that's kind of the way heritage is going. I'm also really nervous being a public speaker, so you'll see this is a trend among heritage people. Before your eyes glaze over at what on earth is an archivist, I thought I would tell you. So it starts off being a record. What is a record? It's basically evidence and information about what has occurred in an organization, in a company, just anywhere. And it's usually transactional in nature. In my current job, I have to talk about what records management is. So I always use the example, if Sandra Bullock sent an email to George Clooney asking him to run away to a Greek island and live with her, and she sends it, it's a record. If it stays in her draft folder, it's not, because a transaction takes place. What's interesting is that if he does decide to run away with her, it becomes a very important record and the beginning of a beautiful love story. But that's when the archivists come in, because we look at context, we look at the bigger picture. And of course, we're going to look at the rest of Sandra Bullock's emails. And if she had sent one to Brad Pitt and to Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, it tells a different story, not so much a Hollywood love story. So that's the difference with archives. It's not just individual records, it's the big story of an organization. And they're important for organizations because they're the memory. So I work in Selwyn Council and our archives are the memory of the council, which dates back to the 1860s. Archivists look after these records, but nowadays we're morphing into looking after current records as well. So quite often you'll find an archivist role in a bigger department, like a records management team or an information management team. Like I said, we tend to work in records now. Although I started off as an archivist, I then became the record specialist in Selwyn, and now I'm the acting information management lead, and I have to learn all about Microsoft 365. I'm used to sitting in a room with boxes, so this has been quite challenging for me. So when we talk about careers and heritage, it's very much constant learning. You have to be adaptable to your job depending on where you work. So I've got a slide about my career, but over the course of my job, I worked for the church for 7 years here in Christchurch, and I never actually thought I'd be dealing with dead bodies, but I was, because we found relics buried under the cathedral, and I ended up doing an exhibition about it. So archives can be anything from a document to a jawbone. If you want to know more, jump on the archives website. There's a whole story there. The other thing with archivists is that we champion the truth, we champion the history, we champion transparency. And if any of you are keeping up with what's happening in the States at the moment, Donald Trump fired the National Archivist because in his previous term, when he left, it was the records managers who brought the first lot of criminal charges against him. So there was brilliant memes going around of all the National Archives records managers with like Captain America shields and Thor hammers getting their boxes out of the Mar-a-Lago hotel where he had taken records there. So we do represent that kind of narrative for whatever organization we work for. And the archives, by making sure that they're accessible, researchers, historians can come in and look at the original records and then tell the story. So a big part of being an archivist is encouraging others to tell those stories. And we're also very important now with AI, because as a records manager and an archivist, you're making sure that the information that's being fed into AI systems is authentic and as unbiased as possible. So one of my jobs at the moment now is working out how we can apply AI platforms to archival descriptions. I've attended a lecture recently where the guy had set up a ChatGPT where like innocuous photos that as an archivist would take forever to describe, he was able to upload the photo, and then ChatGPT came back after a very long prompt with a wonderful description. So it kind of cut his work down from 9 days to about 9 minutes to get a decent collection listed. So just being up with latest technology is really important. Your career in heritage will never be a straight line. I started off by doing a degree in history and English literature. It probably took me a little bit longer than it should have, but it's Ireland, it's a thing. But while I was doing my degree, I started working in an old mansion about 20 miles away from where I lived. In case you can't tell from the accent, I am Irish. And the house was from the landed gentry in Ireland. In the 1800s, 5% of the population owned about 90% of the land. But they were gracious enough to rent the land back to the Irish farmers. But anyway, the house was kind of telling the story of the family, but the curator at the time was passionate about telling the other side of the story, why these fancy houses existed. And so the National Family Museum was set up. So I had started off there, then I met a Kiwi and I had to sober him up and bring him home to his mammy, and that's why I ended up in New Zealand. And that's really when I found my passion, because I started working at Archives New Zealand, and that's the national government archive. And there I learned on the job. So I didn't actually do any formal training in archives. I just had an amazing regional archivist who taught me everything I needed to know. From there, then I had a couple of kids and worked part-time, and then worked at Canterbury Museum. So Canterbury Museum, you think more of the objects and the manuscripts from other people, but they actually had a collection of their own records. So I was part of that project to sort out what did we need to keep and what could have been gotten rid of. And then from there, I went to the church where, like I said, was working with relics, but I was also working on the Royal Commission, and that actually was an amazing chance to get survivors' stories told. So I'm really proud of my work there. But now I'm in Selwyn District as an information management lead, looking at the big picture and reminding everybody every now and then that, yes, these old boxes that are in a storeroom do need to be kept, and no, you can't throw them out, and no, digitizing them is not necessarily the answer. But for you, if you're interested in a career in archives, these are kind of the key skills that you might need. Critical thinking, never look at things at face value. Always ask, what are we missing? So for example, in the church archives, it was the silent voices I was trying to document, and I did a couple of exhibitions on women in the church, because typically in the Catholic Church, they're left out. So just, being challenged. Communication is key, having to do stuff like this, even if you hate it, and just being able to articulate the stories. Adaptability, whether it's dealing with boxes of records or Teams chats, just knowing how to adapt to what you need to do there. And digital literacy is very important now. I'm still learning. Thank God for LinkedIn Learning. Curiosity. I think curiosity does not kill the cat. It makes the place a lot better, asking the questions and not being afraid to ask questions. And the final skill is ethics, because we are dealing with incredibly sensitive information sometimes, so there is an ethical expectation around that. So if you tick any of those boxes, have a think about being an archivist. Thank you.